Hello. Welcome back to the Advocate Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christy Love. And today's conversation is one I've been holding with great care. My guest is an educator turned autism mom who found herself on the other side of the table, learning what it truly means to advocate when systems don't listen and your child can't yet speak for himself. This is a story about faith, persistence, and the power of trusting your instincts as a parent. I'm honored to share her journey with you. Please help me welcome one of my former students, Taylor Terry. Hi, Taylor.
How are you?
I am well, and you?
Doing good.
It's so good to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for giving me this platform to share about my little baby Clayton.
Yes. Let's tell us more about Clayton. Tell us beyond the diagnosis. Who is baby Clayton?
Clayton is sunshine, joy, hope, and love just wrapped up in a 3-year-old little boy. He's a fast learner, he's a hard worker, and he's very determined. He loves crunchy snacks, only Chick-fil-A chicken, fries from anywhere. He loves Fluffernutters, which is something that I grew up on. That's marshmallow cream and peanut butter sandwiches. He loves syrup with a side of waffles or French toast.
Sounds like my 17-year-old.
He loves muffins of any flavor and apple juice or body armor. His favorite color is yellow, and he loves to watch Miss Monty, which is just like Miss Rachel. She's just a different speech therapist on the YouTube platform. He loves Big in the Big Blue House, Barney, and only the 90s Barney that I grew up on. He's recently gotten into Sesame Street, Blippi. He loves Moana 1 and 2, and all of the Toy Story movies.
Yes, he is so sweet. I've enjoyed watching him grow up on Facebook. And what's amazing is I remember when you were trying to get pregnant with him and us having that conversation about us in common having something that made pregnancy difficult for us. So to have him here and watching him grow has been such a blessing for me. And thank you for sharing his life with me.
Of course.
So, what was it like before you ever heard the word autism connected to Clayton?
Well, we had a normal pregnancy and a normal birthing experience. I remember specifically praying throughout my pregnancy, and every day after that, he was already here. Lord, please let him be healthy. And I can't tell the story of Clayton without talking about my sweet stepmother-in-law, Mata. Now she's passed and gone on, and she was fighting colon cancer. But she spent years as a baby nurse here at Decatur Morgan. She tracked my pregnancy with me, explained what all my body was doing and what he was experiencing in the womb. And I will never delete those texts or pictures of her explanations. I'm so thankful for them. Like one of the things that she loved to talk about was I had a tilted cervix. And I didn't really know at the time what that meant or how it could or could not affect the childbirth experience. But she knew all about it. I still even have where she drew two cervixes and labeled them a typical cervix and your cervix. And notes on each one and labeled them about the differences. She was just so excited, and she had so much knowledge, and she just flooded me with encouragement throughout the entire 9 months and a few months after he was born until she went to be with Jesus. The most exciting thing for her to talk about was breastfeeding, which was something that I knew I always wanted to do, even though I didn't really know why. I just thought it looked sweet, and I knew the special bond it created between the mama and her babies. And boy, when she found out my plan for breastfeeding, she beamed with pride and started crash coursing me on everything I needed to know. She taught me about the benefits, how it helps mama's bodies heal, and
Mhm.
how my milk could actually detect when the baby was sick, and so then my milk would change to fit its needs and put in the extra nutrients that it needs to help it get well. And anyone that knows me knows that I love to learn. So it was exciting for both of us. Um, and then once Clayton was here, um, my breastfeeding journey started off good, but it wasn't great. I noticed that as each day passed, my supply was getting weaker. Um,
Mm.
so I started what they called power pumping, and she had given me Mata had given me a book about breastfeeding, and it was a book that's like from the 90s. But I must have read that book 10 times over, and I must have watched like hundreds of YouTube videos. Just because I was determined that I was going to do this, and um, I just didn't want to give up. Um, I would bring this up to our pediatrician that we had at the time. I remember just sobbing to him and telling him I'm failing him. I can't do what God has designed my body to do for him. I told him that I was convinced through research and just reading different articles that he had some kind of oral tie. Um, I said,
Mm.
I said, but I don't really know what I'm really looking at, and it's hard to get up under his tongue, but it could be a tongue or lip tie. Um, and he seemed concerned because it was obviously making me depressed. I was going through a hard time, just
Mhm.
feeling like I was failing him. And also, Clayton was really losing weight. Um, but he checked his mouth that day and all the appointments after, and just reassured me, I don't see what you're talking about. I don't see any kind of oral tie. Um,
Mm.
so 2, 3, 4 months crept by, and I'm having to supplement with formula, and that about broke me.
Yeah.
Um, Not to mention there was a major formula shortage at the time. I felt
Mm.
like I was such a failure. Um, I went to a weighted feeding with a breastfeeding consultant here in Decatur. Her name is Erin, and she is absolutely wonderful. Um, we weighed Clayton in the office, and then I fed him on each side for however long. I think it was 10 and 10. And then we weighed him again to see if he was getting anything from me. And nothing. No
Mm.
change in weight. She suspected some kind of oral tie, but as a breastfeeding consultant, she couldn't formally diagnose. Um, so back to the pediatrician we went. And each appointment, I had him check for oral ties. Nothing he could find still. Eventually, I gave up and just switched to formula because at this point, the supplementing I thought I was doing was starving him, and I
Yeah.
couldn't bring him through that. All I was doing was filling his tummy with air, and that hurt him even more.
Mm. Yeah. I was blessed to be able to breastfeed my boys, so I
Mm.
know exactly the bond that you were longing for, and the relationship that you just like, okay, no one can do this but me. You know what I'm saying? So I can only imagine when you feel like you're failing him.
Yeah.
So did you find out if he had a tongue tie or?
So 2 weeks before he turned 2, I'll never forget it. He was laying on his back in the living room, and he loves tickles. So we were having our standard tickle fight. I remembered he was laughing so hard, and his mouth opened extremely wide, um,
Mhm,
wider than I have remembered him opening it. And I saw what I believed to be a tongue tie.
mhm.
Um, I mean, there it was. I felt a heat a, a wave heat like rush through my body from head to toe because this was something that I had. tried to press our doctor to really look into and to try to believe me on. Um, so the next morning, I called our pediatrician and I told them what I had seen,
Mhm.
and they had pushed a referral to the ENT in Huntsville. So once I got on the phone with them, they were like, "Well, it will only um, it'll be like 6 months to a year before we could get you in, and
Wow.
even have a consult to see what's going on." Um, and that didn't sit right with me. After all those months watching Clayton's sounds disappear at this point in time, he was not sleeping. His food choices were very slim, and they were
Mm.
just getting smaller as time went on. Um, I remember calling a friend and crying to her, and she had just had a baby, and they had also discovered an oral tie. And so she told me about Pelham Tongue Tie Center. I mean, you
Mhm.
do not have to have a referral for them.
Awesome.
Um, it's like a pediatric dentistry. So we took him for a consult that next week. And not only did he have a severe tongue tie, he had one of the worst lip ties that they had ever seen. Um, it went between his.
I'm sorry, Taylor, for a second.
You're
So
okay.
how does he go all that time being told he doesn't have one, and then it's so severe? I'm kinda lost with that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's just how our story has just kind of there was a lot of things that kind of made sense or did not make sense along the way.
Mhm.
And then when I have gone back and tried to look at videos and try to pinpoint, okay, where did things start changing and stuff? Like Clayton started off babbling. Um, he would kind of try to copy you and say, "Uh-oh," but he would try to cough it out and go, "Uh-oh," like that.
Mhm.
But the sounds that he was making initially did not use his tongue,
Mhm.
or his lips pressing them together.
Mhm.
And so as time has gone on, um, we have had to, and he's still having to be taught how to use his tongue for speech because it
Mhm.
was restricted for so long that he just got used to not using it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
And with you as a teacher, you taught kindergarten and pre-K, right? And I
mhm.
know that you're having to teach kids how to make these sounds, like, literally you're doing that. So,
Mhm.
um, was that something when he was making his sounds, did your expertise in that area even make you more concerned because you were aware that, these sounds should be coming, or?
Yeah. When I taught kindergarten, um, part of our reading program was I went through the letters training and the Orton Gillingham training and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I would get a mirror and I would give Clayton a mirror and I would have him look at my mouth as I would make the sound, and he couldn't do it. He would just sit there. I mean, he wouldn't
Mhm.
even attempt it. Um,
Mhm.
so I knew something was going on, and I didn't know what, um, because I had been told like there is no oral tie. Um,
Mhm.
in my heart, I just never let that go, and I don't know. It's been a struggle just to try to um, put all of the pieces together.
Yes. So since his diagnosis, how have things been going?
Um, they have been going really good. He is at the Riley Center.
Mhm.
Um, he is at the Riley Center. And before we got there, we went even leading up to the diagnosis, we came across our first speech therapist in a neighboring town,
Okay.
and that was that was not a very good experience.
Mhm.
Um, she wanted us to believe her belief that Clayton needed a speech device to speak for him.
Mm.
And I knew in my heart, I mean, at the time that we took him, he had started trying to say words. He had started trying to say different sounds because once we took him to Pelham and they severed both of those ties, I
Mhm.
mean, that next week he started saying mama.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Yes, you're fine. You're fine.
um I just I knew that sounds were coming and words were coming, and he was going to talk. I mean, he was talking.
Mhm.
Um, and she had told us that she had a student, one of her clients, that is on an AAC device. And she just kept pressing that. She would send me home with articles to read about them. And um, she just really believed that this was how Clayton was going to talk, even
Mhm.
though he was showing signs that he wanted to talk and he was trying. And I just remember just really pleading with her, you know, like I'm so glad about this client and that this has worked for him, because she had said that he had just given a speech through his AAC device. And I said, but that's not Clayton. Clayton is not nonverbal. And I remember walking her back through the journey of the oral ties and how Dr. Baxter at Pelham had told us, he's going to need patience. He's probably going to need to be taught how to use the muscles in his mouth because of the restriction for so long.
Mhm.
And I remember just walking her back through that, and it just really didn't seem like she wanted to put the work in to teach him how to use the muscles in
Mhm.
his mouth. Um,
Mhm.
so that was very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially, and I'm glad that you were the advocate. I'm glad that you had an expert already who told you that it was possible, or that you were already studying and looking into things, and that you have had your training yourself. I'm glad for Clayton for that, because sometimes parents will rely on the expert to tell them, and you're like, well, you know more than me, so let's do that. But
Yeah,
yes, he's very blessed to have you.
thank you.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's just been a hard journey because um, I know, and I will always say this. I know the steps to take practically in the classroom with my school babies.
Mhm.
But for some reason, when it came to Clayton, it's like my memory was swiped. It was like I never went to school to be a
Mm.
teacher. It was like I never went through those trainings. And it was just like, I don't know how to help him. I don't know what to do. And that was terrifying.
Mhm. I can imagine. I can imagine. So you said that he's at the Riley Center now. How did you find the Riley Center? And he's thriving at the Riley Center?
Yeah. So a coworker, bless their souls, um, leading up to the diagnosis all last year, I was just crying to him every day. It would be like clockwork. My kids would leave for PE, and I would break down. I would just sob.
Mhm.
And they knew why, because I I'm a talker, so it's like I had to get the opinions of everybody around me just to
Mhm.
help me make my decision, because um, I didn't always trust my gut instinct.
Mhm.
Um, but one of my teacher friends had told me about a family friend whose son went to this place called the Riley Center when he was about Clayton's age.
Mhm.
And he was diagnosed level 2 autism. He His mannerisms and his language was like Clayton at the time, where it was minimal.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was through this friend that we connected with him. We reached out, and um, it was a hard decision to make, because Clayton was already with a speech therapist at this time that really believed in him. And he was doing animal sounds, and he had about 10 words at this time. So we finally, I mean, it about broke us, but we decided that we need to find something out. We need answers.
Mhm.
And we just weren't willing to wait anymore. We needed closure and rest and peace. Um, so we went to the Raleigh Center. Once we sent in all of the paperwork, met with a psychiatrist, and we got to be in the room. It lasted about 2 hours. He played, and he was evaluated by her. And at the end, I'll never forget, she closed her laptop and smiled so gently. And
Mhm.
she asked us, "Were you expecting to hear the word autism today?" Me and Barrett looked at each other, and through our looks, it was just like we communicated, there it is. We're here. We made it, and it's hard. Um,
Yeah.
and so we watched as Clayton picked up the toys that were scattered on the floor that wasn't necessarily just for him to play with. They were assessing his development.
Mhm.
Um, and I told her, I said, yes, well, no, but I mean, we hadn't put the thought out of our mind. We were prepared for the possibility. And she said, well, he is a level 2 as of right now, but we're confident he will be a level 1 by school age. And I looked at Clayton, and I didn't know that you could go from one level to the other. And honestly, just being an educator, I didn't even know that there were different
Mhm.
levels. You
Mhm.
just hear the word autism, and that's what it is. Um, and so my biggest fear after hearing autism was, what does this look like?
Mhm.
Um, and I told her, I said, what do the different levels mean? How is he going to do in school? Will he be able to play sports? If we're in an accident and we died before him, what would happen to him? It
Mhm.
was one of my biggest fears. And I think probably why I put it off for so long, um, just as just being scared of hearing it and then not knowing what that truly meant. Um,
Mhm.
and I asked her, I said, is he going to have to live in a group home? Um, and she was just like, absolutely not. Clayton will not have to live in a group home. While we don't have a crystal ball, we expect him to do well. We expect him to live a typical life in a way. He'll be able to play sports. She said, we even expect him to grow up and have a family and children of his own one day.
Awesome.
Um, and
Mhm.
she said he probably won't even require an aid, but he might require being pulled out and given extra time to take a test or complete certain assignments.
Mm-hmm.
And she said kiddos like Clayton are very tactile and they like to work with their hands, leading them into professions like engineering or something similar like that.
Mm-hmm.
She said, your boy's very intelligent. We expect him to, just lead this typical life with minimal struggles. And she said the difference between the 1, 2, and 3 is 3 is severe and requires substantial support in everything that you do. 2
Mm-hmm.
is moderate, with support, but not as much. And then 1 is like minimal to no support. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
How
um,
did you feel when you heard this diagnosis, when she gave you this prediction? How did you feel?
my heart was sinking, but at the same time, I knew at that moment I had to ask all of these questions
Mm-hmm.
that had
Mm-hmm.
just been burning in my mind because I
Mm-hmm.
had been having dreams about all kinds of things just happening and hearing the word autism and what level of severity it would be. I just had all of these fears. So, in a way, it was scary, but then it was kind of like, I can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I knew as soon as she said it, I did not question it. This was a psychiatrist, and I trusted her opinion. And now it's my opportunity to ask everything that I needed to know.
Mm-hmm. So you were, as we said, an educator before becoming a special needs mom. How did that shape your expectations at first?
Um, well, those who remember me in high school will remember me as Taylor Harris. And um, I remember I used to have dreams of, being this country singer. And
Yes, and you were amazing, ma'am.
I wrote and like recorded a country album in high school.
Yes.
So when I graduated, that is what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I didn't really consult God about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so when that happens, we have our own plans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we know that most of the time they're not going to align with God's, and He will make you very aware of it really quickly. Um, because in my heart, while I had these dreams, I did not want to go and live in a different state and live by myself and pursue something that may or may not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so once God was like, not for you, I was just like, oh God, what am I going to do? And so I became the intern that never left, at my church. For 6 years, I was the intern in the music ministry program and the children's ministry program.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I fell in love with that. And through
Mm-hmm.
that experience, I fell in love with working with children. So then I started subbing because I was like, okay, I know I love children at church. Let's see what other environments I love working with them in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started subbing and found out really quickly that I do not like working with the older kids. But them folks hurt my feelings. So I was like, I want to work with the babies. Um, and
I'll
so,
let you work with the babies. I'll do the older kids. You can have the babies.
and so as I went from Calhoun to Athens State, um, through subbing and um, just being around kids in general, I narrowed it down from elementary education to kindergarten and third grade. And really, third grade is really pushing it for me.
Really?
But, that is how that panned out. And then while I was pursuing my degree, I went from subbing to landing a job here in Decatur as a paraprofessional in a 3-year-old special needs pre-K.
Oh,
Now
wow.
you tell me that that is not God.
Oh, wow.
It was called
Preparing you.
Yes, it was
Mhm.
called the Typical Peer Program. It still exists. There's a 3-year-old class and a 4-year-old class.
Mhm.
Um, in our classroom, every year we had 6 typically developing children, and the rest were half-day special friends.
Mhm.
They would have Down syndrome, autism. At that time, Asperger's was a um, disability, and now it just falls under the autism umbrella.
Mhm.
But I fell in love with this job, and that lead teacher became one of my greatest friends and still is to this day.
Mhm.
Um, and these children were some of the most vulnerable, and learning from Lauren, the teacher, how to care for them and teach them. I just felt very blessed to this day for that experience.
Mhm.
Um, and I now know that God used that job to prepare me for the path that I would one day walk with my very own child,
Yeah.
that same age. Um,
Mhm.
so hearing the word autism for the first time relating to Clayton really scared me because I remember faces of those pre-K babies flashing through my mind like I was flipping through a camera roll.
Mhm.
I was trying to find a child in those past years. I was there for 3.5 years. Um, to I was trying to find a child back then that would mirror Clayton,
Mhm.
that I would know where to start, and I couldn't find one. So that played into all of the back and forth this whole time between my brain and my heart because I just did not want to agree. Is it autism? Is it not? Is it ADHD? Is it both?
Mhm.
Um, and I finally understood that I had to put my feelings and my visions of what I thought our reality would be with our firstborn on a shelf. And I knew that I had to get busy.
Yeah, yeah. We've talked about this. You've shared your story with me, and you've said that there were things you once judged or misjudged about SPED families.
Mhm.
What changed for you?
So sometimes, as a teacher or just being a bystander in public, um, people can be very quick to, and I have been quick to look at a family or like look at a situation with a child and think, hmm. And I think it's important to remember that we don't know truly what is going on.
Mhm.
Um, and if what we are seeing is autism, it's important that we remember that autism is an invisible disability. Children with autism, most of the time, unless it's accompanied with Down syndrome or other disabilities like that, um, physically, children with autism look typical.
Mhm.
And we might see someone dealing with a child in public, and we might think, why don't you try this? Or you're you seem to be making it really hard on yourself by doing it that way. And
Mhm.
the truth is, we don't know the truth. What you see a family doing, while it may seem pointless or more difficult to a stranger, it might be what has to be done to be successful and survive in that moment. I'm very aware of looks that we have received just by family, friends, and strangers during this journey, um, especially before the diagnosis. Um,
Mhm.
and that's something that's burned in my memory, and I'll never forget it. And unless you live in this situation, understandably, People don't understand the why behind doing the things a certain way in a particular order, or taking extra steps to prepare for something, or allowing extra time for things, or having to explain something explicitly why you do it. And that's okay that they don't understand.
Mhm.
But I think what we need to remember and learn, like I had to, that just because a situation doesn't look a preferred way, it doesn't make it wrong. Um, it's imperative that these families make accommodations however and whenever necessary.
Absolutely. I am a part of a group with moms, and there was a post where this mother had a child with autism, and she was asking for advice.
Mm,
And people who only have typical children were giving advice. Oh, you should do this and you should do that. Like this is going to help.
mm.
Uh, you have to discipline. You have to spank. That's not going to hurt. Like, ma'am. I mean, like, make sure you're asking people, that can give you advice. But I'm very careful because I'm not in that situation to be able to give you that advice.
Mhm.
But that's one reason I'm really glad that you joined me today. And this video will be shared in that group so they have someone who they can use as a resource on how to ask the questions, on what to expect, and how to deal with even discipline
Mhm.
with a child with autism. That's,
And even with Clayton's level 2 diagnosis, he understands, and he always has. He has always understood more than he could say.
hmm
His receptive language has always been much stronger than his expressive language. And we know
hmm
receptive is taking in, expressive is putting out.
hmm
And so, but even in that understanding, and as high of a score as he received in that, there is still a social disconnect.
hmm
Um, and so I remember um, before we received the diagnosis for Clayton, um, it appeared that Clayton was just acting out, and he wasn't. He was
hmm
frustrated. He couldn't communicate, and so, but we didn't fully understand that at that time.
hmm
And so, yeah, we would probably spat if he would hit one of us, and we would just spat him back. And
hmm
I'm very guilty of that, because I mean, for parenting, I mean, that's what you do. Um,
hmm
and so, and I remember talking to the ABA therapist after we once got the diagnosis. I said, we've been guilty of spanking, and we made the decision that that is not beneficial. That's only going to teach him to hit. Um,
hmm
and it could be the same for typical children as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But with Clayton, there is a social disconnect where he doesn't fully understand why he's getting in trouble. Um,
hmm
and so, like, he got to what this is how we knew how to not spat him. Um, he would hand us his leg for us to do it again.
Oh, wow.
And so we were like, buddy, no, like, no,
hmm
it's okay. Like, let's just move on from it. But there was a disconnect.
hmm
I think with discipline, um, it is very important to remember that. So
hmm
what works for Clayton, discipline wise, is, yeah, people are gonna watch us. Um, go the roundabout ways of overly explaining and overly doing these extra steps just to manage the behavior and prevent behavior from happening.
Mhm.
But it's important for the public to know not to insert, especially at that moment,
Mhm.
what we should do because this is what worked for our child. Um,
Mhm.
and we know that even with typical children, every child learns differently and every child develops at slower paces and, you know, but especially when you don't really know, just like we said, autism is an invisible disability. So if you see a parent or a family like struggling and having to do all of this stuff that you perceive to be, well, just take the child and just go. Just throw his shoes
Mhm.
on, throw his coats on, just go. You can't do that
Yeah.
because then you have a whole domino effect of these behaviors that could have been prevented. It didn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. And as you say, for typical children, and I've said on previous podcast, right? We are responsible for teaching and training our children. I
Right.
mean, if they have a behavior that you're not happy with, then you have to replace it with something appropriate. You have
Right.
to teach regardless if that's a typical child or not, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very important piece when it comes to discipline. It's not just about the spanking or the
Uh-huh.
punishment. It is, let me teach you better. Let me teach you differently,
Yeah.
right? So what do you wish educators understood about what families are actually carrying?
That acceptance is hard. And sometimes it takes families longer to be ready to hear the word autism than others. Um, it's important that educators and case managers or social workers that these people know and understand. They can't understand fully, but know that these parents have had to let go of their plans for their child. Um, and they've had to submit to God's plan, and it's hard. Parents of special needs children, no matter the severity, they are caregivers. We are caregivers.
Mhm.
Um, and we are tired and we live in survival mode most days. Um, and we have to plan for plans. Um, and just like I said earlier, we have to do things a certain way to keep situations manageable.
Mhm.
A typical family with typical children can say, all right, let's put on our shoes and we're going to go run to the store. Whereas a family like us, with a child of a disability like autism, we can't do that. We have to prepare ourselves to prepare the child by taking
Mhm.
extra steps that no one would think about. And it took us a long time to manage transitions with Clayton. And even now, there are still some tough moments that we have to work through. But instead of being able to spring something on him last minute, it might start off with us briefly mentioning it in the morning during breakfast or brushing our teeth or showing a picture schedule. And as time inches closer to the errand or whatever event it might be, you start talking about it a little more and you start giving little reminders. Um, we've even incorporated a timer, like for potty training, um, or leaving for church. We'll set a timer on the oven that he can see, um,
Mhm.
and he can see, okay, we have 10 minutes till we have to leave, or we have 10 minutes before we have to potty. And so he knows when he hears that timer go off, it's time to do whatever that thing is. And the same is true for bedtime. I mean, it's very ritualistic. Most
Mhm.
families do bedtime rituals anyway. It's just in everything that we do, we pretty much have to keep it the same and with extra steps and preps, especially on occasions like getting home late during the holidays from seeing family. Um, Clayton's use Clayton used to always love to brush his teeth, and right now it's something that we're struggling with. Um,
Mhm.
I will try bubbles as a motivator. I'll turn on an Elmo or a Miss Rachel teeth brushing song and video to make it fun. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes he's motivated by these things, and other times I'm holding him in a bear hug on the floor, and trying to pry his mouth open to get the toothbrush in.
Mhm.
It's a totally different life. And while it's beautiful and miraculous to watch him achieve these milestones, it can also be very heartbreaking sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, I follow a Facebook page called Finding Cooper's Voice, and I followed her since I first landed that paraprofessional job. But her son has just turned 13. He's severe and nonverbal. And while Clayton is not nonverbal nor level three, the struggles we have endured up until now, um, and even fear of the unknown, um, she has coined this phrase that I have, held close to my heart because it's so true. In everything that we have to do, or you see a typical child doing this, and the comparison game, which you're not supposed to play,
Mhm.
can't help but notice it, especially in Sunday school or places like that. And each time these things kind of like wash over you, it's like a gut punch. And it feels like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Mhm.
Um, So, my message to educators would be to picture yourself on the opposite side of the table during those IEP meetings. And trust me, it's very humbling and has changed me for the better. I feel more prepared and equipped to teach now than I ever have, because now I have the perspective of a special needs mama. And those
Mhm.
mamas and daddies and grandparents on the opposite side of that table are caregivers. Um, and while they are exhausted and living in survival mode and are struggling, they are strong.
Mhm.
They need help. They need resources and grace and support for home and school.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, you mentioned having to beg professionals to advocate for Clayton. What did that look like emotionally and practically?
Going back to our first speech therapist that we only saw her 3 times. But she was determined that after 3 visits, we had to accept Clayton would never speak. She gave me articles, like I had mentioned, about the AAC device. And she
Mhm.
was persistent that he needed one to communicate for him. Um, she, just really brags about her clients that use them and how it makes their lives easier. And I'll never forget her grabbing my hand and saying, "He may never talk, and that's okay." Um, I sobbed when she said that, um, because she said it in a way as if I was refusing to accept Clayton just as he was.
Mhm.
Um, but he had, and I remembered telling her, but he has sounds and he has words and he's trying to speak. And I felt like I was having to argue with a stranger and beg her not to give up on him. I knew in my heart I could not give up on him. And I cannot give up on helping him find his voice. His determination and frustration were too convincing otherwise. So it was time for us to move on and find someone that believed in him as much as I did.
Mhm. Yeah, and I guess that um, her being supportive of those who are nonverbal is a good thing in the
Yeah,
right situation, right? I'm sure she didn't have a malicious bone in her body towards your baby.
yeah,
Um, but that's why it's so important for parents to have that voice, to keep that voice, to be that voice when
yeah.
the child can't speak. Even I don't know. I'm sure that those parents of nonverbal children still have hope. Like, yeah, it could happen. It could happen, you know? And I
Mhm.
think that's important to hold is the hope that no, and I know you are a woman of God, spiritual, like there have been some miracles, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and feeling like we don't have to give up on miracles just because a professional says we should.
yeah. And that was something that um, I wasn't necessarily confident of at the time, but
Mhm.
um, I would just watch him try. And it was just like God told me, do not give up. He will talk. I remember having a specific dream one time, and this was before sounds really started coming and words really started coming. I had a dream that he was talking with me, and we were conversing back and forth.
Mhm.
And then when the dream was over, I didn't realize it was a dream. But when I woke up, I realized that it wasn't real, that like we were in heaven when that took place.
Oh my.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, do you have contact with her now? Like, have you, contacted her and said, "Look, he has words," or
I've thought about it, but
Mhm.
I haven't because I do not want it to come across as like I told you so.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Because she tried to push that envelope so hard on the
Mhm.
device and just that she didn't have hope for him.
Yeah.
Um, so I no, that's not something that I've done, and I probably won't do
Mhm.
unless we just accidentally bump into her one day somewhere.
Mhm. Say, "Hey, Clayton."
I know. Hi.
So, how did gaslighting show up on your journey? And how did you learn to trust yourself anyway?
For sure that experience with speech, that first experience that we had.
Mhm.
And then also through all of the pediatric appointments, Clayton was hitting every milestone on time, but speech.
Wow.
Um, and we were without a doubt pressured to give vaccines that I morally did not agree with
Mm,
giving him after looking up their ingredients and hearing and reading different articles from doctors. Um, we felt guilt tripped by the doctor at the time for
mhm,
wanting to refuse certain vaccines. He had a way of gently letting us know how irresponsible it would be for us to refuse vaccines, that we would be putting Clayton in imminent danger for diseases that could kill him.
mm,
And that, when it was put that way, of course, it scared me. But then again, I would lean back on the research that I had done for myself. Um, and I just trusted God, you know. Um, the tongue and lip tie suspicion and the discovery and confirmation will be one of the most painful parts of this journey. For at least 5 months, I was supplementing formula and power pumping because I
mm,
was being told that what I was feeling in my gut was wrong. Um, and I have since learned from our new pediatrician that they are not adequately trained to spot oral ties. Um, and So I think my suggestion then would be to hear the parents' concerns, if that's the case, and refer them immediately instead of, I don't see anything. Um,
Mhm.
because we went at least 5 months where I made them check Clayton's mouth at every appointment.
And it was a dentist who finally saw it, is that what you said?
Yep, he was a pediatric dentist.
Yeah. Um, Man, it was something I was gonna ask you when you were talking about, um oh, I know what I was gonna say. So, are you're convinced that or you feel very strongly that it was the vaccine?
Um, so fast forward through all of our appointments, Clayton was hitting, his milestones on time. He
Mhm,
wasn't showing any delays, and believe me, I was watching for them.
mhm,
Um, he would track toys. He would track our fingers. He would just follow along. He
mhm,
had great eye contact, and he even started babbling around 2 to 3 months old. Um, he crawled, stood, and walked all on time. Um, and along the way, babbling stopped, and any sounds were just gone.
mhm,
Laughing remained, and thank goodness for that.
mhm,
That sound kept me going. But even him positioning his mouth and lips to imitate a facial expression or prepare to attempt a word, it was just gone. And since the diagnosis, I have went back into my camera roll to pinpoint where I started seeing a shift. Um, and after the MMR, which was one of the main ones that I did not want to give him, um, there was a subtle decline that just went into a downward spiral over time.
mhm,
But that's when he stopped trying to babble and imitate things like coughing, or I even have him on video going bad, 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 bad. It was just gone. Um, and though his expressive language was slipping away, um, after just getting started, like his receptive language was very strong. And I knew that even though his speech was declining, his understanding was still there.
mhm,
Um, and I had talked to, coworkers, speech teachers, people that I trusted in the profession that I worked with, and people that I had previously worked with. Um, I would talk to them about Clayton, and they would just, remind me that sometimes most boys need a little extra time. And
mhm,
so that became my hope and justification for the next year and a half that I would
mhm,
cling to relentlessly. Maybe he
mhm,
just needs more time. And also, my mom was keeping him, so he wasn't around other kids. And
mhm,
I knew that that was probably playing a big role. He wasn't hearing that language from other babies and toddlers.
mhm. Taylor, I can't tell you. Um, of course, I'm not a medical expert or anything like that, but I can say that I have so many of my former students around your age whose sons in particular have been diagnosed with autism.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I'm like, wow, like why is it's almost epidemic, like it's
Yeah,
there
truly.
I have not ever seen I mean, I look back in history when I was a kid or when my sons were, Clayton's age, and they're 25 and 17 now, and, I mean, that it wasn't present there, but now with my former students, with the babies, that is so prevalent, and what's, amazing is that yesterday, I was talking to my friend, and he was thinking the same thing. He was saying the same thing. Oh, he was perfect. He was perfect. And then that MMR, and he said that specific one, the MMR vaccine. And I'm wondering, I'm like, did we receive the MMR vaccine? Did they change it? I mean, I don't know, but it is just amazing how, and his was a boy also. There are so many boys in particular who are now being diagnosed with autism.
Um, yeah. And I will say, I will withhold her name,
Okay.
but I will say that my Landon, that is about to be a year old, our new pediatrician,
Hmm.
gives us the option of vaccine or no vaccine. And she does not guilt trip. We just sign a piece of paper and that's it. You're not gaslit. She wants parents to go home and do their own research and then make their decision. She doesn't advise one way or the other. And I remember asking her one day, um, because we have chosen not to vaccinate Landon at all.
Hmm.
Um, and I told her, I said, he's kind of like my guinea pig. Is that wrong? She said, I don't blame you one bit. And she said, once they had their youngest, she decided not to do it either because ADHD and autism were on the rise. And she pointed me to a RFK Jr. book that I've yet to read, but it's all pointing back to that. So,
Yes. So, what would you say to parents who feel dismissed when they raise concerns, even when they don't have all the answers?
that your parental intuition is enough to change your child's future. Just because you don't have the degree or expertise needed for certain things, you know your child.
Hmm.
And apart from you, the only one that knows your child deeper is God. You know what they need, you know what makes them tick, how they best learn, and you even know what would hold them back. If your instinct is to make a change in doctors, therapists, schools, you need to recognize that as discernment and go with it.
Yes, yes. And in hearing your story and reading about Clayton, reading your story you shared with me, you said you promised God you'd share Clayton's story until he can share it himself. What does that calling mean to you?
Um, it is his highest calling to be his voice, along with being a wife and a mother to him and his little brother. I take all three of these jobs very seriously. And I will say I fail daily, um, but I try. Um, I don't see Clayton, I don't share Clayton's story to exploit him or one day embarrass him. I hope one day he is proud of how I shared his story and growth and efforts to bring hope to other families. I'm very honest and intentional in what I share. We all know the spectrum is very broad and can also be very vague in where a child lands on it. Clayton lands on the spectrum at a moderate level too. He is predicted to live a somewhat typical life. A lot of his behaviors are developmentally appropriate, and that's what's been hard too along the way is even when he was frustrated for lack of communication and he would hit, toddlers kick,
Mhm,
some toddlers
mhm,
even bite. So that
mhm,
definitely played into the justification of why or why not. Um,
mhm.
However, a lot of his behaviors are not typical. Um, and I share this to say that in the moments he seems typical, his size for a 3-year-old is more like a size of a 5-year-old. He is bigger, and therefore people would naturally expect more out of him. Um, so it makes it difficult encountering people that just assume he's a bad kid, or he's a bad 5-year-old kid.
Yeah. That's tough. I know it has to be tough for you. How has your faith sustained you on the hardest days?
And reminding myself that Clayton is exactly who God made him to be. Regardless of any disability label or diagnosis, Clayton was still created in his image. Um,
Mhm.
and no matter what happens, and no matter what his path in life looks like, it will never make the above statements untrue. Um, this has been a long and hard journey, and even when we have felt alone or unseen or unheard by God at times, He was always there with us. He has guided us along this journey, even when we didn't realize it at the time. But the discernment that I received about the different doctors and therapists along the way came from him. He's been shifting puzzle pieces before us to help us put them together.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And, I know Clayton's going to be proud of you for this. Your story is going to bring hope to so many people. What hope do you want families walking into the diagnosis to hear?
Um, I used to pray and plead with God and cry myself to sleep about every night. I used to be fearful that I would never hear Clayton's voice. But God heard the desires of my heart. Um, I used to add my own endings to certain nursery rhymes. My husband didn't even know that at the time. Um, but when I would rock Clayton to sleep, I would shift the endings. So he loves Barney. So I used to sing, I love you, you love me. We're a happy family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Someday you'll say you love me
Oh my gosh,
too.
Taylor.
And tears would just be streaming down my face. And Clayton would look at me with those big blue eyes if he was still awake. Because sometimes he didn't fall asleep.
Mm,
And he would just bless me with the sweetest smile.
yes.
But our someday is here.
Mhm.
And we are now going on 6 months at the Riley Center, and I can't even believe that he was once so silent. And I would spend most nights crying myself to sleep and just pleading with God to help him find his voice. Um, when my maternity leave started in February of 2025, Clayton had a handful of single words, maybe 10 at most.
Mhm.
Um, Now, after being at the Riley Center for 6 months, he has well over 100, and he's
Ah,
now beginning to use 3 and 4-word phrases and short sentences. Our recent program that has been exciting to watch him growing is answering yes and no questions.
yes, Clayton.
I'm
Oh
telling
my
you,
gosh.
God so hard. Um,
Awesome. So if you could speak directly to educators, administrators, or service providers, what would you ask them to do differently?
I had a teacher friend ask me this the other day, and it's something that I almost can't believe that schools don't provide this. But parents and families need to be provided with outside resources. Um, when I'm able to return to teaching, I'm going to request that at Meet the Teacher, we send home a list of resources in
Mhm.
surrounding areas. Because receiving 30 minutes of speech or OT once or twice a week at school is not enough. Um, ABA clinics like the Riley Center need to be advertised to families. They need to know that help is out there, that this isn't it.
Absolutely, Taylor. You're fortunately you're married and you have like some, familial support. And I have some former students who are single mothers dealing with this,
Mhm.
having to work and take care of their son with autism, but also the son who is now feeling like, oh, you're giving that a baby so much attention, or, the daughter who is helping you cook while you do whatever you need to do with that. Oh my gosh. And I've talked to one and I'm like, what what do you do? How do you make it? And she had no clue about resources. Like you're saying, like
Yeah,
that needs to be made readily available
absolutely.
to the parents at the school. That is I agree that's something that's much needed.
Yeah, and, um, so Clayton's schedule with the Raleigh Center, I mean, it is a 5-day-a-week full schedule. So on Mondays and Fridays, we have a therapist come to our home. Our dining room is his therapy room.
Mhm,
So in here, you'll see the ball pit, the trampoline, um, calendar for calendar time. Um, and every toy in this room, I strategically handpicked for his development to go along with his goals, like fine motor and stuff like that, puzzles. Um,
mhm,
and so then on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, um, he goes. Um, and he has a one-on-one ABA therapist the entire time, something that he wouldn't be able to get at school.
mhm,
And that's how I knew to make the decision. Do I send him to that 3-year-old pre-K class that I worked in, where they have 6 typicals, 2 aides, a teacher, and all of these other sped friends? Or
mhm,
does he go somewhere like the Raleigh Center where he has somebody's undivided one-on-one attention the entire time? And yes, it's hard for working parents. Bless my husband, he works swing shift and he's the only one able to work right now because I had to take a step back from teaching to make this work. And I
mhm,
understand that there are families that can't. And driving to Huntsville just about kills us in gas and everything else.
mhm, mhm,
But there needs to be, even if, like with the Riley Center, somebody coming Monday and Wednesday or Monday and Friday to work with Clayton one on one, there needs to be support like that available to these single family homes, single parent homes.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you tell a parent who is just realizing this journey is going to be harder than I imagined?
Um, Build a strong team
Mhm,
consisting of doctors and therapists. Bonus points if you can get into an ABA clinic that's compatible with your beliefs and needs. Before our path led us to the Riley Center through friends of friends, we had been, different places with different therapists. Um, and honestly, our previous speech therapist that we had gotten with believed in Clayton. It's just going to the Riley Center, you have to use all of their therapists. Um, Cling to your spouse. Um, we were and are still on a a very emotional roller coaster. Um,
mhm,
Work on your marriage and don't take each other for granted. Um, Keep God at the center and know that He has a plan and try not to blame Him. Um, he will use it for good to glorify His name. And that points back to Romans 8:28. Find a good therapist to talk to yourself.
Mm.
and it's okay to not be okay. Um, but pick yourself up and have hope. Um, the initial diagnosis isn't the end of the story, and it doesn't predict their future. It's only the beginning. And don't try to write the story yourself because that will only cause you to delay. Trust God with the pen and allow Him to be the author and the editor. And your job is to just track along with your fingers and follow Him.
That's beautiful. Oh my goodness. And I really want to say that part where you said to get your own therapist, like you need to be able to talk to someone, right? And you need to be able to deal with your emotions and things like that. And I think that is a piece that a lot of people are missing, trying to do this on their own and not dealing with their own mental health in this situation. Like they really, thank you for sharing that, giving them that advice.
Of course.
Well, Taylor, it's about our time. I want to thank you for trusting us with your story. And I will let you go, but hopefully, maybe you'll be back on here and we get to hear more about Clayton. And maybe
Yeah.
Clayton will come and do an interview with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be so sweet.
Okay, babe. Love you.
Love you. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh, I thank her for trusting us with that story. And my hope is that today's conversation reminded you that advocacy is not about being loud, it's about being faithful, informed, and relentless in love. Oh my gosh. To the parents listening, you are not imagining it, and you are not alone. And to the educators and system leaders, listen closely. Children's futures depend on it. And until next time, keep asking the tough questions, keep showing up for the children, and keep advocating because children deserve adults who won't stop fighting for them. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us.